Hello, and thank you for joining me today for our lesson in anatomy and physiology. This is Unit 1, so it's our introductory unit. We're gonna talk about the basics as far as planes, positions, movements, locations, regions, cavities, all that dealing with the body that we're going to then reference later on in future units in this course. Today specifically, we're going to start Section 1, which deals with planes, positions, and movements of body parts. And so let's get started. At the end of this lesson, this video, you will be able to identify the 4 planes used to cut the body, used to dissect the body. You're able to describe, demonstrate, model, show, understand what is meant by anatomical position. So this is a term we're going to use often, and everything we reference in this course refers to anatomical position. You're going to be able to use the terms superior, inferior, anterior, ventral, posterior, and dorsal to describe locations within the body and directions. You will be able to label positions as lateral, medial, ipsilateral, contralateral, proximal, distal, superficial, and deep. To compare body parts, we're going to look at joints. You're going to use the terms flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, and circumduction to describe the movement of body parts. And we're going to use the terms rotation, pronation, supination, eversion, inversion, plantar flexion, and dorsiflexion appropriately when talking about movements. So here we go. The first thing we're going to talk about is planes. So a plane is a way that we divide the body. So if we were to cut the body in a certain plane, we would essentially split it and have 2 portions to look at. And so we have different terms we can use to describe these planes. The first one is median. When we talk about the median plane, we are talking about the center. If we were to divide your body front to back, dead center. So we split you between the eyes and go from the top of your head down through your body, down to where your feet are. We would get 2 equal left and right halves, at least from the surface. You have identical halves with the median plane. This is the green line over here. The green plane here is in the dead center. The next one's sagittal. Sagittal divides just into left and right. So median is dead center, left and right. Sagittal, we can split you anywhere left and right. And so another name for median is called mid-sagittal. We can use either term, mid-sagittal, not sagittal. Sagittal. So mid-sagittal, median mean the same thing. Sagittal refers to any left and right half. If we're talking the frontal plane, and this cuts you into a front and a back portion. So if we cut you essentially from on your shoulders, so left and right, we would switch into a front and a back portion. Another name for frontal plane is called coronal plane. I use both. I try to use coronal more because it's going to come up when we talk about bones. But coronal and frontal mean the same thing. And the last one is cross or transverse, in which we cut you into upper and lower portions. So you see that in this red line here. So frontal was the blue plane. Transverse or cross is this red plane there. All right, really quick, think to yourself, how would the body look, or what would you see if you cut a body in the sagittal plane, the median plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane? Take a second, make sure you can do that, and think about how the body would look. Moving forward, we have this thing called anatomical position. If we are referencing anatomical position, this means the individual is standing straight, standing vertically. You're facing forward. Your upper limbs are at your sides, and your palms are out. So this is showing you anatomical position from both the front and the back. Feet are forward, head straight, eyes looking straight ahead. Arms at the sides, palms forward. Here you see the back of the hands because it's the back of the body. This is anatomical position. So when we reference these terms, everything we're learning in this lesson is going to reference this position. And so now that we have this laid out, we can use terms such as superior. So if we say superior, or use the term superior, we mean above or closer to the head. For example, your heart is superior to your femur. Inferior means down or below. So your tibia is inferior to your sternum. Anterior and ventral. These two terms in humans means the same thing. Anterior means towards the front, ventral means towards the stomach, because this is our position. Front and stomach are the same direction. If we're talking about a dog, anterior means towards the front. Ready for a dog? Anterior would be this way, ventral would be this way. So that's differences. In human terms, they're the same thing. And so your eyes are anterior or ventral to your brain. They're in front of. Posterior and dorsal, same thing. Humans means towards the back. So your ears are posterior or dorsal to your nose. I should have left my dog up there. So if I'm talking about this dog, let me erase this. The dog, posterior would be back here, behind. Dorsal would be above, in the back. Humans, behind and towards the back is the same thing. So they're interchangeable for us. All right, really quick. How does a sagittal plane differ from a transverse plane? Using superior, inferior, anterior, and posterior to describe how these body parts are located relative to one another. So ankle to knee, heels to toes, eyes to ears, and pinkies to shoulders. And come up with 4 examples of your own describing the location of different body parts using those terms. All right. When we talk positions, we're going to get some different terms. So we're going to start with medial. Medial means towards the middle. This is not median, which is the plane. 2 different words, 2 different meanings. Medial means towards the midline. Okay? So if you think of medial as towards the midline, the L in medial, midline has an L. You can help you with those 2 words. So your nose is medial to your eyes, closer to the center of your body than your eyes. Lateral. So medial means towards the middle, lateral means the opposite, towards the outside. So farther from the midline. So your ears are lateral to your eyes. If we use the term ipsilateral, this means on the same side of the midline. So we were to cut a body in half. Not anatomical position. But we cut this body in half. Your right arm and your right leg are ipsilateral to one another on the same side. If we use contralateral, so your spleen and your gallbladder are contralateral. They're on opposite sides. Your spleen and your descending colon are ipsilateral, same side. More terms as far as locations go. The term proximal means closer to the trunk, closer to the core. Your elbow is proximal to your wrist because it is closer to the attachment point, which is your shoulder. And this is where we always reference anatomical position, because yes, you can bend your elbow and get your wrist closer to your shoulder, but anatomical position, it's still farther away. So proximal is closer. Distal means farther from the trunk, so your fingers are distal to your wrist. If we talk superficial, means closer to the surface, so closer to your skin. Your epidermis is superficial to the stomach. And deep means farther from the surface. So the dermis is the deepest layer of the skin. The dermis is deeper than your epidermis. Either one of those 2 examples would work. So that's location, or positions, and we're talking motion. So our appendages move. We have this term called extension. If you extend your arm, you are increasing the angle between the 2 bones. So extension here, you went from this position to this position. You extended, you increased this angle found here. Flexion decreases the angle. So I took this angle and I made it shorter there. So decreases the angle between bones. Adduction. Think of adding to the body. If I adduct, I bring my arms from the outside towards the body. I'm adding to my middle. Abduction is to move away from, the opposite. And this isn't the real pleasant thought, but think of somebody being abducted. They are taken away from home. So moving away from the midline of your body. And then circumduction is movement in a circular direction or circular motion. So your arm and your leg can both circumduct as well. More with movement. We have terms such as rotation. So rotation, you move a bone around its axis. So your head rotates left and right when you look over your left shoulder and right shoulder. Supination means external rotation or rotating away from the midline. So if you put your hands in front of you, palm down, and you rotate them up, think you can hold a bowl of soup by doing that. So palms down, rotate them so you can hold a bowl of soup. Pronation is rotating the other way. So then it's the opposite of supination. So supination, you rotate out. Pronation, you rotate towards the middle. Inversion. This is if you roll your ankle, you invert your ankle. You turn your ankle outward so the sole of your foot faces inward. So you inverted your ankle, you sprained your ankle. Eversion is the opposite. This is when the bottom of your foot points out. This is really difficult to do. And then you have two types of flexion with your foot. We call it dorsiflexion, which brings your foot towards your shin. And we have the top of your foot is considered the dorsal side of your foot, and that's where dorsiflexion comes from. Then we have plantar flexion, which is where you point your toes. The bottom of your foot is considered the plantar side. And so you flex towards that side, push that side down. That's plantar flexion, so pointing your toes. All right, here's your last set of review questions. Provide an example of flexion and extension. Be able to explain the difference or state the difference between abduction and adduction, and then demonstrate each of these different actions. Make sure you can do this prior to coming to class. If you have questions, please let me know, and we will continue on from here.